people, we are back. End Product Podcast. Big shout out already, actually, to Your Sorare, who says that he's just jumped in and had to shoot out. He's given us a little sub. Thank you for that with the Prime Gaming subscription. I know I kind of spoke about this on the podcast a while back, but I've been messing about off air today, just trying to figure out how feasible it is to do like a little mini league where we take some of the funds from the Prime Gaming subscriptions and turn it into a little prize pool for the listeners of the podcast. And I think it looks very possible. So
nice.
We're going to get that rolling. So Your Sorare, I think we're going to try and aim to get that rolling for the beginning of next month. So I'll kind of figure that out in my own time away from the podcast and communicate it. And then once it's all nailed, I'll let you all know how to get involved. But yeah, essentially, if you've got Amazon Prime, like a lot of people do, you can subscribe to anyone on Twitch for free. And that's the Twitch streamer will get that £2.50 or $2.50 for each of those. But it costs no extra if you've already got Amazon Prime. So bit of fun. Try and get a little bit of extra bang for your buck. Anyway, less chit chat from me. We do have Quinny online with us now. Finally, he's in full effect, in full colour, Dolby surround sound. How are you doing, Quinny?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah, in the middle is that the deadline wasn't that long ago, and we've already got Friday night action. I've got 2 games on tonight. Jordan Larson's in the team for the 6 o'clock kickoff for Copenhagen, and I've prioritised him into my big Super Rare 240 team that I think Stish is like card capable, So, and again, the defender in that team as well, Pablo Maffeo, plays tonight as well at home to Villarreal. So a lot of end products will be happening as we are going through the podcast, which will be
nice.
Good crack. Because I went for 240 Stish as my priority division, right? And then no matter what scarcity you operate in, you're always in this, and I felt it at different parts of the game. Anyone listening to this, I'm sure will feel it wherever they're at. But you're always in this kind of no man's land of really like, how good is my club and really what is my best team? And sometimes you really need a lot of stars to align for different things. And I just looked at the fixture list for this week and said everyone else's stars are aligning. Liverpool are at home, Bayern are playing Bremen. Let's see if you actually look across the fixture list. There's so many OP fixtures.
Yeah,
I was just like, I'm just going to try and look for some easy, good old fashioned wins this week. I'm not looking for smash and grab podiums and tier zeros and all that kind of stuff with the kind of the cards in the gallery I've got at the scarcities I kind of run at. I just thought, I'm just going to go really strong, really thorough, and make sure the kind of zone my cards kind of belong in. We hit as hard as we can and we get as much as we can. So 240 at my main scarcity, if you like, is my main play this week.
I like that. I like that play. Yeah, I think since the sort of cash wallets come in as well, I find myself looking a lot at that like cash ETH. And I actually realized that today I've finally got like my first bit of money in the cash wallet from a sale that I made today. Only a small bit. I think it was a 20 quid rare card, a recent win. There's not a Nottingham Forest player, Ryan Yates, decided to let him go on the cheap. I've just got no space really or much use for him in SO5 terms. And it's funny you mentioned that, like going for those old fashioned wins, not going too deep into the gallery and all that kind of, your fixtures. Like you said, there's a lot of overpowered fixtures this weekend. Another thing that I did think a lot about when I was doing my teams this week was there's been a little bit of a rejig, hasn't there, on like the sort of prize pools, getting ready for these kind of like monthly tournaments and they've kind of like tiered the divisions, haven't they, by what they believe to be like the hardest or like the most competitive divisions. So you've got like your all-star will take the grand kind of like scheme of prizes. I think in cash terms, at least, not maybe so much as in cards. That you've got all-star, then you've got champ, Euro, and then it goes down, doesn't it? I don't know if you've like had any thoughts of that's played into your decision making at all, but it definitely made me think a little bit more about like weighting a little bit, like putting some of my bigger cards into those higher earning categories. Definitely made me think a little bit more about champ, Euro. I think winning the Mbappe last season puts me in a position where I've got to be competing in there, really, haven't I? So to see that kind of get a little bit of a cash boost definitely tempted me in a little bit more. Means I'm using some of my U23 heavy hitters actually in champ this week. I've put Florian Wirtz in there. Um, I don't really fancy Leverkusen against what I believe to be a really exciting Leipzig team this season. And, they started very strongly, didn't they, last weekend against Bayern? Kind of really set their stall out for the rest of the season. So, yeah, with you on this kind of like trying to figure out where to put my pieces. But this week I've definitely looked at Champ and All Star a bit more. Maybe been sort of like I'm being tempted in by those cash prizes more than I thought I would be. But that's definitely been my thinking in terms of sorting the teams out for this weekend at least anyway.
Yeah, because in these divisions, like we've all done it, like no matter again what level of the game you're playing at, when you have a good week, like sometimes you're a bit bummed out because it's like, oh, I only got what we would refer to now as a tier 3. But now a lot of some of those, I don't think it is strictly speaking that tier, but like it's finishing top 70, it's finishing top 60, and you're like, oh, I had kind of a good week, and I was nowhere near the good
Mm,
stuff. But some of those spots now, some of them, not depending again what scarcity we're talking about here, but some of them are a bit more lucrative, and it's like, oh, actually, all I need to do is get top 30, top 100, top 80, whatever it might be. And that's a wee bit more realistic than thinking about top 3. Top 3 is a really hard thing to imagine.
mm,
And, yellow and red, certainly, it's maybe a bit easier at blue, black and that. But yeah, so, and I'm definitely with you on that. It just gives you something else. It's something we've always said on this show as well when we've been talking about the progression on platform and where we see the game going. And that first time where they started paying more money out than Beyond the Podium, it
yeah,
was just like they could just do this anywhere and everywhere. In the first place, they've done it with the existing. Like the main disappointment I've got around all this, particularly for the monthly part of it all, when it comes to monetary as well as champion, is that it is in theory coming from the same pot of money. They're not really saying, "Oh, we're taking X thousand out here and putting X thousand there and putting X thousand there or whatever." In terms of total prize allocation, but they're saying we're taking some from here to give to there to make this
yeah,
happen.
yeah,
So on the face of it, it just looks like they're reappropriating. But when you kind of look at the numbers, it's hard to work out if it's more, if it's less, is it the same? I wouldn't be surprised if it was a little bit more, but again, I would be I would be much happier if it was just like, oh, I liked All Star being top 100, paying out cash. It's now top 80. I don't know what's happened in limited. I haven't checked this week. Sorry.
mm,
I don't think maybe Rare Pros maybe changed a little tiny bit, maybe 35 to 30 or 30 to 25 or something. I forget, but it's not been that much. But that 100 cash spots down to 80, I thought that was a bit rubbish. Like, you didn't need to do that. You could have just lowered that and just kept
yeah,
it top 100 because top 100 is kind of cool. Um, so it's great that they're doing it, I think. And I think to just keep expecting it, particularly like Challenger. I had under 23 for different reasons, I suppose, but Challenger really needs something like that or whatever because, like, see this season, like, see all these boss fixtures. A few
yeah,
of them are in Champion, but a lot of them are in Challenger. And there's going to be a lot of Challenger cards that will powerhouse caps and All Star and these kind of things, but there's still going to be buckets of them in Challenger. Never mind all the Challenger cheat codes and happenstances and lightning striking twice and all these kind of situations that will happen. That in itself is like a real fire pit of a region that it does need something along. I think this has done a great thing for Champion. I think Champion needs something to warrant any market premium that it carries.
yeah,
And I think just adding cash on the leaderboard really just justifies all that quite easily. And Challenger, maybe cash on the leaderboard is like a thing that definitely it needs, but maybe even like we've mentioned before, I don't know if I've certainly said that on a podcast or if it's just been on the YouTube channel, on a video or whatever, but like some sort of, and I don't think they're going to do it now because we're into the season. This would be something further down the road, but beyond money, Challenger might need something like maybe dividing it or something, or offering Challenger maybe kind of like maybe mirror divisions or something where you can play kind of two of the same division, but they don't. It's not two teams in the same competition, but somehow have some sort of alpha and beta, and somehow maybe like the beta is like the cap 220 equivalent, and maybe the
mm,
alpha is like the cap 270 equivalent in terms of maybe, or you could even cap it, you could even Challenger 270 and Challenger normal or something, and maybe do something a bit different. But I think Challenger needs something else to give it a wee bit more. Because I was talking to Harry actually in the deadline stream, he was saying, "Oh, I've got so many more teams out, more than ever before." And Harry's been playing this game a long time. He's had lots of cards, so there's no
mm,
reason that this season now is the most cards ever for him. And it kind of dawned on me when we were talking, and I don't know if you caught the deadline, but it's down to cap modes, because cap modes are all just little versions of All Star.
Yeah,
Basically, you know, you can play everything and anything in there. It doesn't matter that one's in Japan and one's in America and three are in Europe. You can put that team in there now. Whereas before, you could only do that in U23 or All Star, you know, kind of thing. So it's that, you know, you feel better about your gallery, you feel better about your club when you feel like, oh wow, I've got like 8 teams, man, that are punching all of a
yeah,
sudden, and like, because the 220 is rubbish cards, but you feel that, oh wow, they're bang on 220 this week, and 3 of them are at home, you know. So like, you know, so those wee crap guys are actually now like, oh wow, they're actually OP. Maybe like, let's have some
yeah.
fun with that, you know, and it gives you something to root for. So yeah, just a bit of a blurge, but there you go.
No, I think I feel that as well, because I think at the moment I'm finding that obviously I think the leagues are a little bit more competitive, say this season, than they were last as well, because maybe the prize pools have been spread out across more divisions. So, like you said, with All Star, they've gone from 100 down to 80 in the cash prize places. But you know, the card getting to those top end quality cards, you really need to be hitting big now, especially in limited. I mean, this week, the midweek just gone, or you know, the one's closed just today. I went in there thinking, oh, I've got a pretty tasty looking All Star team, and I'll get my score up. But I was absolutely shocked at how far down in the scoring I actually ended up with. What I felt was like a really strong score for like a pretty, you know, a pretty small, very slim midweek. I know, granted, there was a lot of popular so rare teams in there, a lot of stackable so rare teams, right? But I scored 382 points in a midweek, and I finished in All Star Limited 340th. So it's that feels,
Just out.
yeah. I mean, like I managed to scrape into the tier 3, which you know could be a pretty decent reward. Tier 3 is not too bad, but 382 points in a thin midweek is I thought that was a big score, but obviously it's not.
That's not too bad.
382 to finish. There's 339 people ahead of that. And if we look at the leaderboards, you know, the top score, 477 points, is a massive score, you know, and there are, you know, you have to go as far down as 20. So 26 people scored over 450 in limited, which is, you know, a max score of what, 550, or is it 600 once you add all of the bonuses and that? Maybe a top score of 600. So yeah, pretty massive scores. I think that it raises the point that limited is starting to become, you know, a bit like, you know, in Fantasy Premier League, how everyone has to have very similar teams if they want to chase the leading pack. And I think that limited is going to become a little bit like that. If you see, like, obviously the man of the moment, Lionel Messi, if you haven't got Lionel Messi in your team in, say, like caps 270 and have him captained on a game week that he's got a match, which is nearly every midweek at the moment because of the Leagues Cup,
Yeah.
you are not getting near anything decent. You ain't getting near it. Like, the chances are that, you know, 100% of people who enter Messi into that cap 270 have captained him, and you know he's going to score 90 plus quite easily. So yeah, I'm finding limited. It must be frustrating for people who are maybe only playing limited, because I find with like rares on, you know, one of those thin midweeks, you might get lucky. I think if if you bang 380 points with a rare lineup in the midweek, I think you'll be winning a pretty decent reward. But not so with limited. And I was quite surprised at just how high those scores were. But, you know, also we've got the change of the cutoff point for lineups to be entered again, gone back to that 3 p.m., which then kind of cuts out a lot of those, you know, K League fixtures that a lot of the good value players, shall we say, in the game for those cap modes, for those midweeks, are going to kind of be hit with those decisive only scores. So I do think, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how limited pans out once we get those new cards for the new season. Supplies are going up. But prize pools will probably stay the same. I think competition in limited is going to be really extreme this year, and it'll be interesting to see what the potential fallout of that is with the limited community. I play limited myself, but I always kind of go in with a very low expectation of rewards, even though I do think that my limited lineup's pretty good, especially, I mean, that challenger lineup that we spoke of that I bought last season, there's all been broken up, obviously. Lost Xavi Simons. I think Ruli's out for months now. Timber's done his ACL, moved to Arsenal. So that is no good as a challenger lineup anymore. But yeah, I think that's another thing, going back to your point on playing challenger. If you've got a good challenger lineup, you've probably got that lineup for 6 to 12 months max, because anyone who's that good in challenger gets snapped up, moved to champ, don't they?
Yeah, well, it depends. Some of them move within challenger, but basically, yeah, you're right. Like good players don't stay in their situation very long. So there's always somebody on the food chain ready to just take them up and move them on, kind of thing. Rico Man kind of echoes your sentiment here as well. He's saying he's looking at moving up to rares because of how difficult he's finding it with his limited cards. And it happens at every scarcity. I think to every Sorare manager at different times of the year, depending on what your expectations were and where your cards play. So like, so like guys in America, obviously, if you don't have European cards, this is also the time you suffer, and kind of vice versa. But if you're coming into a new European season with cards that have been XP and up and ready to go, and you maybe just get that sense that it's not quite there, and do you know what, man, I'm actually a wee bit further away than I thought. Then basically what I'm getting at is, one thing I always err on the side of caution of for myself when I'm kind of looking at my own gallery and stuff and such, is not always grass is always greener, number one, but it is knowing what is the best thing for me and my gallery and me enjoying the game and whatever. Like recently we were talking right before coming on, but I've been going back and snapping up rares like mad over the last last like couple of days especially. I've just had a mad appetite for them. I just think that I need to get my club a bit stronger and punching a bit harder and whatever. And for me, what is kind of like, the kind of scarcity down, as it were, so I don't really play with limiteds at this point, but obviously at limiteds it's amplified even more so, the kind of experience that I'm kind of pulling here. So I think it's one of those ones where if you're straddling both scarcities, it's easier to just like, I'll just like deprioritize limiteds, maybe sell some trimmings and then focus on a bit more. But when you're wholly in one scarcity, the reason I always kind of err on the side of caution, like the grass is always greener kind of thing, but watch out for that, because going from one complete scarcity to another is a real overhaul. Like it's a real big thing to undertake, and that can be done very successfully by a lot, and it has been done by a lot of people. You hear about them on Twitter whenever they do it, and all these other places, Reddits and whatever. So yeah, and it's a lot of fun, but it's one of those things where it's probably the strategy and the plan needs to be laid out, and it needs to be like, as soon as the first domino drops, you get all, the sequence of events unfolds for you. You know who the goalkeeper is, your free defenders, your this, who's the captain, whatever it is, you're going to go and do it, and then you get to getting, as soon as I say the first domino falls. So yeah, man, like if you're feeling that, then it's a game, feel the game in that sense, and and then plan it out. Because in planning it out, they'll then realize, is that a grass is always greener, or actually what it would take to move from red to blue, or from yellow to red, or whatever. I wouldn't actually go over the line. I couldn't actually get as much power as I think I could, or and then again, you can stop yourself from maybe getting halfway into something before realizing something like that, which was something we want to try and promote on this channel if we can.
Yeah, no, I have this conversation with my brother quite a bit, because he's someone who's sort of like, he definitely warmed a bit more to Sorare towards the tail end of last season. I think once he kind of like got his head around the cap modes in limited and stuff like that. And he had a few rare cards, but a lot of them kind of like were stuff that he picked up really early when I got him on initially, and then he kind of lost interest. So he's sat on a few red X's and stuff like that. But he's kind of going through a similar thing at the moment. But I think that the goalkeeper purchase is still the big blocker for him, because it is, and probably for a lot of players as well, especially if you're moving up from limited. You'd probably have to sell 5 to 10 decent limited cards to get anywhere near buying a very bang average or below average goalkeeper. to enter those rare sort of cap modes and cap 220s and stuff like that. And yeah, it's been interesting talking to him. And I think that, but I do think that, like, if you sort of comparatively look at the scores maybe needed, the potential to win rewards in rare versus limited, I definitely feel like there's some kind of incorrect parity between limited and rare prices at the moment. And I think that, you know, if you got the opportunity to win $50 with a rare cap 240 team, and I genuinely believe you could put a competitive, not competitive in terms of you're going to win All-Star or you're going to win the whole division, but I think you can hit 250 points for, let's say the goalkeeper costs you 250 quid. And then the rest of the team, I don't know, maybe, I reckon where like you can set up a limited kind of squad for about 50. I definitely think it's not, you don't need as much as 500 quid at the moment to get, you know, like a 5-player lineup that's going to start. That might have, you know, you might be able to get maybe 7 or 8 cards for 500 quid and have options that should be rotatable and hopefully are players that play. It'll be interesting to actually have a go at building out a rare cap team for that kind of budget, because I think the goalkeeper is probably going to take 20%, 20 to 30% of the full budget, possibly more, you know, like maybe even half, unless you can be patient. Of course, there is a lot of movement, isn't there, in the market at the moment for goalkeepers as well. So if you can get the right side of a bit of news, maybe pick up. I'm finding like picking up the non talked about goalkeeper. So like, you know, if you look at a move like Bono recently, and you thought that was going to happen, you should be, rather than looking at where Bono's moving, you should be thinking, well, who's going to step in? Are they going to sign someone, or can I pick up the backup for like 120 quid? And I did a bit of this in the closed season. One of them came good, but then he had an absolute stinker when he came to play his first game, and he got dropped. So that almost paid off. And then another one I picked up, feels like it was a long time ago. It might have even been last season. I think that one of the relegated goalkeepers in the Russian league, Belanov, his name was. I saw like he was linked to a move to one of the clubs that stayed up. And, you know, I think I picked him up for about 30 quid. And that move didn't materialize until this season. So the move did happen, but it happened the season later than I expected it to. And he's gone on to play he's playing for Farkle in Russia. Not a very good team. So his scores are pretty poor, but, you know, there's a goalkeeper I paid 30 quid for in rare who is now useful. And I think in the week, there's been an injury crisis in Japan at Consadole. Sugino is injured, not long term, but they also they let their backup goalkeeper go out on loan, I think, to Kyoto. So they had to bring in a backup goalkeeper, and they brought in Shun Takagi, who is a Red Cross playing in Oita Trinita. And you could probably have picked him up for like next to nothing a few weeks ago if you'd have got on early. Do you know what I mean? He would have been 10 quid in rare or something like that. So I do think there are opportunities. I think it's easy to say, goalkeepers are too expensive, but I think this is the time with all these little moves going on. You watch, it's like dominoes, isn't it? Like one player moves, someone has to bring in a better goalkeeper, someone brings a kid up from the youth team who has to start a couple of games, has a couple of decent games. So I think this is the time really right now to like really be on top on Twitter, follow all of the news reporters, you know, and like follow the paper trail, like who's linked to who. If he moves to there, then what happens to the backup here? Like if this player moves, then he moves, then he moves, then he moves. That means that this player, like the fifth in the chain, is going to move to this club and become a number one. And it's interesting, especially if those players are moving to clubs that are covered but aren't minted as well. You know,
Good one that happened earlier today was Patrick Pence, former number one a team in Austria. I want to say Vienna. Also went to Leverkusen to be the number 4 goalkeeper, as every goalkeeper aspires to in their career. But now he's away to Brøndby, I think, on loan for the season. They're not in Europe, but you know he will play for them. He was on loan last year somewhere for a little tiny bit, if memory serves me right. but that's been done earlier today. He should be kind of cheapish. But yeah, that happens. But yeah, and again, it's like it's knowing all those kind of consequences. Like if you're looking at Leverkusen, like and saying, "Wow, they've got like 3 or 4 goalkeepers," like
Yeah.
who's going to move? You know, maybe you would have picked him. It's probably quite a reasonable assumption.
He's a really good example as well, because we could talk about getting in there cheaply at limited level. He was going for £6.50, and then today he went as high as £21.85 in the space of a day. In rare, you're looking at a move from 111 quid at auction about a week ago to 304 quid direct offer today. I mean, it is a bit mad, isn't it? I think the knee-jerk reaction of like the market to a goalkeeper move is massive. So you have to be careful if you get the wrong side of the news. But if you get the right side of it, and I think a lot of that is just down to patience in it. A lot of goalkeepers who are decent will get a move at some point. If they've had first team experience, they'll get there eventually. They'll get their move. And I genuinely believe, like, the Pavels of this world have probably made most of their money from these goalkeeper links, little nuggets of information, and the market really does kick off. I like to use that Sorare base. I don't know if you use it, Quinny, but sorarebase.football website has a little sort of ticker at the top of it that I don't know if it's like the last hour or what, but it kind of shows you what the current like hot cards are, and they tend to be, like I'm going to click this one, Kim Kumbe, 12 sales, up 280%. He's a goalkeeper. So, I mean, I don't know what the news is there, but there's a signal there for you that people are buying this goalkeeper. His price is still cheap in rare. He's being sold for 0.01. So I don't know where he's moved. He's a Jeju card, where he's moved or where he's being linked to. But if that, this is happening right now, I don't know where he's going to. But earlier today, quite a few sales, quick flurry, and I think that's a good little nugget of information there. It's sorarebase.football. Check it out. It is
I've
good.
been on it before. Yeah, all these little secondary websites, they're all been pretty handy. I'm bad for keeping up with them all, but I remember Base being a good one for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, little signals. It's nice to sort of, you might catch this is definitely where things get caught early. Kim Kumbe today. Who else have we got here? I mean, it shows them in limited, obviously. But yeah, always interesting to see who's moving and try and figure out why. The next port of call will be to give that player's name a search on Twitter and have a little look and see what the news is there. But yeah, interesting. Thinking about going back to that original point, moving from limited to rare feels like, for me, the value is there at the moment, but obviously it's that financial outlay, isn't it? And I think the goalkeeper is the big question mark that hangs over a lot of people's heads at the minute. So yeah, good luck to anyone in the market for a goalkeeper at the moment. There's definitely a lot of action, isn't there? So long as your goalkeeper doesn't end up in the Saudi league. But don't know about you, Quinny, but the amount of moves to the Saudi league this summer, I think, has surprised me a lot. And the quality of moves. A lot of people were like, oh, it's going to be the next retirement home for a lot of players. But, we've seen Neymar move there since we last spoke on the podcast. Arguably one of the best players in the world still. And he's not old. He's what, 31 is Neymar? 31, he goes there as one of the world's best players. He's going to go there and earn an absolute mint, of course. But we have a lot of top level international superstar players in that division now. I know we try not to talk too much about it on the podcast, but is it getting to the point now for you where this starts to feel inevitable that this is going to have to become a covered league next season if all goes well this season in terms of growth? I think the big scare for a lot of users at the moment is if we introduce another league, which we now know has to mean we're going to mint cards from that league as well. is minting a whole new division going to, like, cause a bit of an oversaturation in a market that doesn't want that many cards? Or, there is an argument that it buoys the Asia division a lot, because, the Asia division is definitely a bit thin in terms of like the available players. But obviously, how overpowered might they become in that region? Yeah,
Well,
interesting.
well, I think one of the parts about it is maybe worth talking on is, like, there's a lot of overpowered fixtures this game week. Is, when you look at the fixture list, you can see them all the home teams, all the big challenger teams, etc., etc. But with the absence of some of these guys now, like Neymar, and obviously Messi's went to America, so it's a little bit different or whatever. Like, for the game itself for this year, if you're holding in those cards, of course, like I have been Jota, and I know there's Benzema holders out there and other cards, it's not nice to see them go there and you're not going to get to use them this year. But in terms of just a natural kind of consequence of it all, is like, I don't think there's been more optimism going into a season that you could crack a leaderboard more often than not. There's still good Kimmich, there's still Trent, there's still some of these guys knocking around, but you're not looking every week at PSG beating teams 5+
Mm.
and you're not looking every week at some of these other players that have just been OP machines that have ended up, they're kind of, some of them are a bit older or whatever, but Benzema, some injury stuff as well. I was about to mention Courtois or whatever. So I don't know. I think they'll need to cover it next season the way things are going, as long as it doesn't disappear. But yeah, it's more about, I think there's just there's less of a feel that the competition is that powerful.
Yeah, but I think that if the magnitude of players moving to that division continues at the rate that we've seen, we've seen international stars move there. Benzema, we've spoken already about Neymar. Ronaldo's obviously out there, and he's following, kind of probably like kick-started the whole thing in the first place. But for me, I think that there's enough going on out there now that, from a football perspective, I'm going to have a bit more of an interest in just following the results, following what's going on there. I've started following, the Instagram accounts, and I'm sure a lot of people listening probably done the same. But I already have a heightened interest, definitely, in what's going on out there, and I think that it's only a matter of time before, more and more people are following this league. And if we have, undoubtedly, there's going to be more moves to the Saudi league in this window. But if all goes well, and the people who are throwing money at this division continue throwing money at it, we could see another exodus en masse in the January transfer window. And yeah, it's just going to be really interesting to see what the kind of like viewing figures are, all this kind of stuff for this league. I just feel like it's going to become one of those things that we're just going to hear about it a lot more, aren't we? On like general football platforms, Sky Sports News, that kind of thing. It's going to creep in a lot more than it would have ever done. Way more than, like we don't really get J League or K League news on Sky Sports News in Europe, do we? But we're going to get Saudi news 100%.
It feels very, and again, this is quite age appropriate depending on who's listening to this, but it's listening to you talk about it now. It's like WCW vibes, if you get me. If you know what I mean, they're just coming in and they're signing all the big names, and it's kind of like, if you know what I mean, you'd never hear, like you're saying now, you never hear about the J League. It's not like you'd hear about any other wrestling. Nobody cared about it, but it was like this other thing that happened that. So that's the kind of vibes I'm getting, where it's like the villain, it's like the pantomime villain becoming in the football landscape, as it were, of like, trying to be the disruptors and trying to be the, we screw UEFA, we'll do things our way, and now,
Yeah, I do remember that. Like, to talk about that, that is quite a throwback, Quinny, for starters. But I do, you just really like, you've just unlocked a childhood memory there of, like, Hulk Hogan and Macho Man making the move over to WCW and that. And I mean, it turned out, didn't it end with WWF, which is now WWE, buying out WCW and basically just doing a big merge.
Yeah.
Maybe the Premier League just needs to do that. And there's like, right, Saudi League, look, we'll give you some fixtures. I don't want to see it, but you can imagine it happening, couldn't you? Like,
it's probably going to happen the other way around in this case, where Saudi Arabia buy UEFA, and then it's like Riyadh Airways UEFA or something, and then
there's some great.
Saudi Arabia is now part of Europe all of a sudden. And
we just got I love this with our first time chat in the chat from Stokey Scott and Quinny. You've obviously invoked
Hey,
this.
aye, I bet Stocky. Stocky's a good guy.
Yeah, is Ronaldo Hollywood
Andrew,
Hogan?
come on. Aye, Ronaldo's 100% Hollywood Hogan. I read something on Twitter saying that Ronaldo's been messaging La Liga players trying to get them to come over. He's
What?
100% Hollywood Hogan. He's definitely,
Oh,
he's in
mate.
the locker room. He's DMing people, come to Saudi Arabia, come to WCW, you know, like
Amazing.
screw Vince McMahon and all that.
I was just gonna say, like, who's Vince then? If Ronaldo's Hollywood Hogan, he sounds like yeah, you know, like the WCW. Who was it? Eric Bischoff or something like that in WCW.
Yeah,
We're going right down into the rabbit hole now. Like,
that's
yeah,
funny. Probably shouldn't hang on
amazing.
it too long, but it's a good one.
Yeah, I mean that could be a whole podcast on its own, couldn't it? Just like who's the Macho Man Randy Savage of Sorare? I mean, we could sit here all day deliberating over that one. But
Aye, for sure, man. That's
classics.
what it's like. That's the way it feels anyway. I think it's on DAZN. Somebody's asked about. I think where it's DAZN or DAZN as you're meant to
Yeah,
say it.
yeah,
They're going to be showing it, and I think like see all their highlight packages and all that. It's just going to. That's the kind of vibe it's going to be. It's going to be like WCW, NWO, like kind of vibes where they're like showing off. Like Milinkovic Savage is going to score from 60 yards or something.
yeah,
And they're
yeah.
going to post it, and everyone's, and it's going to be like that's the reaction. Is like, oh well, does anyone care? But Milinkovic Savage scoring from 60 yards against a wee Saudi Arabia and eighth, they're eighth in the division team
Yeah.
with no players or whatever. I don't know. So I don't
I
know.
was looking at
It'll be funny to
the
see how it pans out, but it will eventually end up on Sorare. There's no two ways about it.
yeah. I mean, I was looking at the Al Ali starting lineup the other week, and the front line of Mahrez, Firmino, and Saint-Maximin, if I remember rightly. I mean that's Premier League quality front line. Like that is not a bottom half of the Premier League front line for me. So, if they continue to strengthen as do all these other, Al Hilal is going to start looking pretty interesting, isn't it? But yeah, I can't help. I'm going to be following it. I don't know how many full games I'll be watching. I think until I've got some Sorare interest, I don't think I'm going to sit and watch a full game. I think I need some Sorare interest in a game of football to sit and watch it, unless it's a team I really support. But yeah, be interesting to see how like the Sorare impact for me, at least as a player. I feel like the minute that I've got cards covered in that division, I'm going to start watching it properly.
That
But I think
changes.
for now, it would just be the highlights. I'd be quite happy to just kind of follow the scores and see how the like the big names are doing out there. But yeah, Quinny, do you know what? We've been chatting away. We haven't got into any end products. We obviously missed last week. I was on holiday. And you've mentioned it very briefly that you've been getting into the market. Any wins to report, and what have you done with said wins?
I've not really had any wins. I was actually having a wee chat with maybe it was me and you, or I'm losing my mind. But yeah, I was chatting with somebody at some point today. It's been a really weird day for me. But I've not really been getting that many thresholds, even with having like a 5-man team here and there and whatever. Thresholds been quite difficult. So not really much end product, but I managed to get a wee threshold. I managed to get a wee tier 5, a wee rare threshold, a wee tier 5 super rare at the weekend to kind of welcome back the Premier League and stuff. So that was kind of cool. Nothing in the midweek, and this weekend I'm hoping for something pretty good. But I've been out hustling and bustling through the market with my wee E threshold and a few wee trades. Done a fair number of trades with Pavel, by the way. Pavel's been quite kind to FC Barcelona, and I think with his swift responses and counter offers, which have been easy enough to meet in the grand scheme of things. And I've brought a lot. I've brought I'm just looking now. 1, 2, 4, 6. I've brought in 9 rares over the last week, and I managed to trade a super rare around a Rio Hatate forward for an Oyarzabal. Mainly most of them with Pavel, and it's a lot of midfield, to be honest with you. I've really buffed up in that area, but I've managed to get a lot of like bucket list pieces in, guys that are just like all the way through the off season. They've been on my kind of list of like, yeah, that guy would make sense. Yeah, that guy would make sense. Especially after the collection bonus was unveiled, some of them then became easier to identifying. Like I brought in a Conrad Limer. I already had like 2% locked in with my Leipzig thing already. Just I've got a rookie first owner as well as Angelino and Guardiola's first owner, if you get me. So
Nice.
Limer being a starter at Munich, like that's just a, you know, if I needed a champion mid, you know, for example, I spoke about this before in the podcast, I'm pretty sure. So I just had a few things I thought I'm just going to go around and action these and bring these in when they became available. And earlier today, this is probably the only thing I haven't covered in content, but earlier today, I knew Pavel had a Goretzka rare in his gallery. He got it 3 days ago, and I've been thinking about it. Goretzka is one of my favourite players, as you know. He's also at an all-time low. And I don't think Pavel's had one. Really, if he has, it's not been anywhere near acquirable for me. But he also, but what he got in today that made me think, oh, I'm just going to go and make a deal happen with him right now is he got in a Daichi Kamada. So one of the big, and again, I'm really glad I get the chance to say this on the podcast actually. It's a player I had high hopes for this season was Marcus Antonio at Lazio, but he's actually going to be moving now. The rumours I caught earlier today, we're recording this Friday. I'll try and get this out as quick as possible for anyone that might be interested. But it looks like he's going to be moving to Greece, to PAOK, or PAOK, is it spelled?
Mm.
And I thought he was going to be fun this year. I didn't think he was going to be nailed and be a, you know, one of my main men, but definitely expected him to do more than blue X work, you know, let's say. So Kamada's went to Lazio. I'm a big fan of Kamada as well. So I thought Pavel had one. And I thought, let's just go and get the Kamada. And I know he's got a Goretzka, and let's just go and make a wee deal happen. I took a reward, the Super Rare reward. I took the Marcus Antonio, and then I put Yuki Kobayashi, who's like fifth choice centre back now at Celtic or something. And I thought, I'll take the chance on Goretzka sitting on the Bayern bench. Somebody even reckoned maybe Goretzka is Saudi bound himself. I don't think I would completely rule it out, but whenever I listen to Goretzka, his quotes and stuff, he says, nobody's getting me out of Bayern. I'm good enough to play in this team, and I will play in this team. You know, that's his kind of attitude towards it all. So I don't think Saudi would take him out of there. I think it would be like Liverpool or City or Real Madrid, or it would only be something like that, I think, because I think he's like so bought into that cause, like to leave it, it would really need to be a big phone call. And I don't think a big phone call, if that's your mentality, you know, is necessarily the Saudi one. No, it doesn't rule it out. Of course, it could very easily be that he could just go, no bother, and fly away, and he's there playing football in a week, you know. But I thought I'll take the punt on him. It's big Goretzka. I've been dying to get him in. And if it pays off, man, imagine he did go to Liverpool or City or even got back in the Bayern team. And I've picked him up for trade value because Goretzka at the moment on the market on auctions, auctioned 4 hours ago, I think, at 0.096, which is 128 quid. It's not nothing, right? But as far as Ethereum goes and the general Sorare market sphere, he's never been cheaper. You know what I mean? And I say he's one of my all-time faves of modern football at the moment. And I say all-time faves, like I've really enjoyed watching him. There's also been not much happening over the last year or so. Same with Bernardo Silva. I got my first Man City card in. And I think with De Bruyne being injured, Mahrez leaving, Gundogan leaving, he's kind of ever present anyway. If you look at his SO5 history, Bernardo like always features. And I think he'll do better this season. He's got big peaks in him. But even in the worst case scenario, he is a fantastic cap 240 player. Like, you know what I mean? He's never going to break over L15, 55, really. He's always capable. He's never really going to DNP on you. And it's Bernardo Silva as well. He's top end quality. And I've got Josko Guardiola in my club as well, like I mentioned as well. So I've finally got a little Man City play on the go.
There you go. It's happening.
So a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff in terms of trades and that. I brought in Frimpong as well. Needed another champ defender. Pairs up with my Wirtz. It's our first owner. I've got a wee cheeky 1% on the go there. And then I heard a rumour that Kevin Campbell was going to leave Leipzig and go to Trabzonspor. And, you know, Kevin Campbell's always injured. He was injured in the warm-up of the German Super Cup on Friday that Leipzig won quite comprehensively. But at 30 quid for one that's at level, I picked up as like level 15 or something when I got it. His floor's like 26 quid. So it's like a £4 difference. It's nothing. I thought if he goes to Trabzonspor, he's kind of like Was, but he's got that Turkish calendar rather than the Danish one, basically. And again, it's Leipzig. I get a wee kicker bonus on him. It maybe helps me push that wee kicker bonus a wee bit higher for some other cards that are maybe more important, like the Guardiolas and the Angelinos, and maybe some other people maybe we go and get one day. Who knows? But anyway, I think they're the main highlights. But yeah, I went and ran around and threw a bunch of cool pieces into the club. And I think like at Rare, and super rare. I feel like way more competitive for this game in general. And I think like you need to have like your own little edge, because if you look at the fixture list we've got this week, like it is brutal. And if you've not got your own, like I made the joke with Harry, I've got Robbo and Limer in the same team, Stish. This is a pure accident. But I made the joke to Harry saying that that's like the poor man's Trent and Kimmich, you know, if you get me.
Robbo and Lima.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you've got to have something going on in your own little direction. Because we're talking about how competitive it is at limited, and if like, and I know if you look at the boss fixtures, you're going to go right. Let's get some sort of combination stack of Liverpool Bayern. That game's been played. People are playing that game already. If you're going to try and get into that game, you're so far behind the 8 ball in terms of XP difference. So like, if that bangs, you all bang. Where are you in the pecking order for that? Well, your guys are all level 2, and you've got no collection bonus, and they're all out of season, and whatever. So it'll just take you longer to catch up to that median of the pack, or even get to the top end of that pack, and then be one of the main beneficiaries when that stack goes off.
Yeah.
So you need to come at you need to come at it from your own angle in most of these cases, in terms of not just your budget, but your actual player selection, and then when you strike in what divisions you kind of strike out as well. So I'm up to 94 rares again. I've been hanging around Stish around the 70 rare mark for about a year, and see when like the thick end of 20 of them are all NYC. It's not
Yeah.
that it doesn't make things easy for you, So last season was actually really tough for my club to really get churning, and I think this year it's hopefully going in a much like I did great last year. I had a lot of fun, but I think there's more to be won, and I think I'm more capable of doing stuff in that. So some good trades rather than actual end product itself. But
Nice.
it still is end product, but it's not just the end
That's it.
product.
You're fusing the future as you speak. I
Yeah.
had a really good week last weekend. I managed to scrape in what game? Let me have a look. Hold on. So I actually got 3 rewards, and one of them I got rid of straight away. I won a tier 5 Omar Alderete at Getafe. He's gone. I sold him pretty cheap. 20 quid I think I got for that. So tier 5, quite happy with that. But in big news, the 2 rare tier 2s that I won. First off, Nasang Ho, FC Seoul forward, which is really good for me with all the Seoul cards that I have. Really nice. Goes in the gallery perfectly, and is a rare Seoul forward. Since I got rid of Cho Young-wook, who went to do military service, I've been lacking that Seoul forward option. And Nasang Ho's on sets, he's on pens, so he's a great one to have. Between him and Palisevich, who I also won recently. So I've had 2 recent Seoul rare wins. So I'm going to keep hold of him just because I like watching FC Seoul, and I think he's worth about 50 quid. So I'd rather keep hold of him, I think. But the other one I won, really interesting one at the moment, Benjamin Pavard.
Ooh.
Which is a great card, big scorer. But it's like, what do you do with him right now? Because he's come out pretty, he's been quite vocal about the fact that he's ready to leave Bayern. He wants to go elsewhere. He's been linked to Man United. He's been linked to Arsenal. He's now been linked to Inter. All good moves for him, I think, especially given, the news of Timber's injury at Arsenal. Man United having a centre-back that can play as a right-back as well would be really useful. But, until he moves, not sure what is going to happen with him at Bayern in the very short-term future. But a good win nonetheless. 48th place, tier 2. I think Pavard's a banger of a card to win as a tier 2, personally.
Aye, big fan of Big Ben. And I think he only ends up at Man United, really. I don't think if you're him, you go to Inter. Or who else did you even say was linked there? Arsenal.
Yeah.
Maybe, but Arsenal have so many defenders. And I know they're injury stricken, that's why they'll be after him. But if you're him, you've got to look at that and go, right, there's like 9 centre backs there already. Like, that is only going to be a pain in somebody's backside at some point, So I think if you're him, you go to Man United and you get Wan-Bissaka out that team. And, I'm guessing you've seen the Wolves game. Wan-Bissaka was tucking in. You ask Pavard to do that, I'm sure he'll do it. Pavard really wants to play centre back, but because, he made his name. And, we've spoken about this before. I tipped Pavard to Man United earlier in the summer because when he broke into Stuttgart's team, And then when he broke into the France team when they won the World Cup, it was all at right back. And the
Yeah,
Barca played up, he's clearly, like, obviously, if you look at him, the guy's trained a centre back. And it's kind of like David Alaba. Remember when he left Bayern because they were playing him left back? He's like, I want to play centre mid. And then he
yeah,
goes to Real Madrid and they play him centre back. And it's like, it's one of those ones again. So I think I think he goes to Man United, gets paid a packet. And as soon as like Varane's out of favour, he's going to be right in at centre back because they've still
yeah,
got Delo, they still have Wan-Bissaka as well. And yeah, if he can be some sort of upgrade on Varane in somebody's eyes, then I think
yeah.
it's only Man United. That's definitely a hold for you, now, mate. I think, isn't it?
I've got him listed just because I think it would be a nice.
Brighton.
I listed him thinking, it'd be a nice little amount of money to put in the kitty, just because of the options
Yeah.
I have. I think already at the back in Champ are, in my opinion, a bit stronger in terms of I've got Di Lorenzo, I've got Gvardiol, I've got now like Lukeba who's moved to Leipzig. Who else have I got? I've got a lot. Tamori, like I've got a lot of very good scoring, nailed on centre back options. We know, we love a centre back, but yeah, I think he will score well at Man United. But yeah, it's just down to the point of another thing that's been ticking off in my head constantly is looking at the value of rewards when you win them versus like a few weeks later. Because I think if you hit like a tier 1, tier
Oh,
2,
mate.
they're always like they're worth quite a bit when you win them. If you're winning them as a 1 or a 2, right? But the minute that they lose their place in a team, whether they're into the tier 3s and 4s, and I look back at a lot of the rewards I won, and I'm like, I should have sold that week that I got it, and now it's worth like a quarter of what it was, and maybe like winning a goalkeeper who is like just kind of covering the injured number 1 or something like that. I mean, Kendall McIntosh is a recent win. That's a great example. The Sporting KC goalkeeper, who is now probably like back down to like second or third choice goalkeeper. When I won him, when did I win him? Let me think. I won him. Oh, how do I find out when I won him? Okay, so the 30th of June, I won him. And he was worth about 5 times what he is now. I think when I won him 30th of June, let's have a look. He was roughly, he was selling for 0.107, and his auction 2 days ago 0.02. I should have sold him. I didn't really need him at the time. He offered me a little bit of opportunity to play a couple of midweek games. I thought, hey, I'll stick him in there. Didn't really put up great scores, not playing for a fantastic team in the MLS. And now he's out of favour and can't buy himself a game. And everyone's been wise to that. I think when his price was where it was and he found himself in that tier 3, it was probably like, overkill anyway. But yeah, you live and learn, don't you? And I think that's partly why when I hit Pavard, I'm like, list him now, see if he goes. But, if he does get a sniff of a move to Inter, that's quite a nice move, isn't it, from an SO5 perspective? Because we didn't have Inter cards minted last season, so it might be like, oh, if they don't come back this season, that Pavard is like his supply stops as well. So
Could be very good in an Inter Milan back 3 as well, thinking about it.
with Bastoni, yeah,
Aye.
yeah.
And they've signed
So
somebody else, I forget who, but they've signed somebody else very good to play. I forget who now, but yeah, I think that may actually be something to think about. Big Sommer and goals as well. Would
yeah,
be good. Yeah, sneaky. I fancy it Man United, but yeah, Inter Milan actually makes some sense now I think about it.
but yeah, I think for me, it's like where I think now when I win a card, it's like, where does that sit in my gallery? Like, how useful is that going to unlock extra for me? Does that give me the options I need, etc.? And I've had a few wins of late that definitely do that, but I didn't feel like Pavard did. But he's worth enough money that makes me think I'd like that money though. I would love, that 240 quid or whatever he goes for at the minute would be nice. Put that in the kitty, save it for a rainy day. I think at the moment, I've had quite a few rare wins where they don't quite do what they should for my gallery, and Yeah, there's definitely a few that I should have sold. Looking back, I should have sold that. Should have sold that. And yeah, I just thought, let me just list him. If I sell it, I don't think I have any regrets. But yeah, just another little thing that ticks off in my head when I'm winning at the moment is I'm definitely more inclined to sell rewards at the moment than I have maybe ever been. But yeah, I'm building up quite a nice little stack of ETH from sales. It's nice to see that going. I'm a hoarder. I never sell. I should sell more often than I do. So yeah, it's just trying to maybe make better habits, not getting attached to your card wins too much. But yeah, how are you getting on anyway, Quinny? I know we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast you got a couple of players in action. Any updates from the news desk?
No, nothing to report. 30 minutes in, nothing happened as of yet. But we're trudging along, getting some AA.
We like to hear that. Fixtures are you mostly excited for this game week, and what is your big lineup? Where is your big lineup this weekend, and who's in it?
Well, my yeah, it's hard to say big lineups. I've not got any great goalkeeper choices, so the team that I've put the most hope in, I suppose, is my 240 super I spoke about at the beginning. So I've got Skorupski in goals. He's at home to AC Milan, so I'm just kind of hoping for the best there. Soria has probably got a better game on the face of it in a different team, but I just don't think any of my goalkeepers are going to get clean sheets. Skorupski got 54 last time against Milan, so if it's that kind of game, like I'm kind of happy with that, Maffeo in defence, the right mid that's meant to be right back, and then I've got Illich and McGinn both at home in midfield. Illich takes sets, McGinn goes box to box, obviously, and then Larson up front. So that's a super rare threshold team, 240 cap. It's pretty much bang on cap, and if we can get top 20 with that, we'll be buzzing. But I need some. These divisions can be really competitive at the top. I'm not taking anything for granted. We need decisives from them all, but I just think they're all pretty good games. Larson's 25 minutes in there now. He's got he's almost got a point of AA to his name. Not quite there yet, but Copenhagen are winning 1-0 and maybe that can kick on. But I have a good bit of faith in Champion Euro. I've got my first ever, not my first ever, but yeah, it's my first ever, I guess. Sociedad, Getafe kind of stack on the go. I brought in Oyarzabal. He's playing with Edward and Mendes. Edward's also at Palace. I think the Arsenal defence is so injured at the moment. Big Edward's on for a couple of shots on target. If he gets one of them in,
Yeah,
job done for me. That's all I'm after. And then I've got the Getafe defensive combo, which I've not really played together as a defensive combo. But they're away to Girona, and Girona probably will score a goal or two. And I know Barcelona just couldn't score against Getafe in the last game week, but that's also a great fixture. Maybe Getafe can keep an hour clean sheet, but I'm not holding my breath on it. So yeah, I think that's kind of the big ones. I told you as well, I've got a Champ Euro team where I've got Robbo and Limer in it, the poor man's Trent and Kimmich. But I put Wirtz in that team along with Savio, and Savio's playing against Getafe. So if he gets in on the action, then I've got a team that's going to be quite happy for it with big all black and goals. So a lot of good fun. I've got more teams than that. I won't bore everyone in the podcast with all the teams, but they're the kind of heavy hitting, big name fun ones.
nice. Yeah, I've got a couple. I think my U23 Super is kind of like my nailed on at the moment. Like trying to get some wins out of the Lee Hanbom unique Bake Jongbom at the back. I think if FC Seoul start with a clean sheet, then it's game on for me. But they haven't been particularly good at doing that in recent weeks. So that's kind of kiboshed my U23 Super. But I've gone back in there again this week. Lee Hanbom and Bake Jongbom at the back against Daegu at home, who have also been a bit short of goals of late. So really hoping that Cecilia doesn't turn up and spoil my party there. I've gone with Jan van Eck at the back. He did start for Brighton last week. He's a really good defensive player who, when he was out on loan at Blackburn a couple of seasons ago, was a great scorer. Hasn't been able to get the minutes at Brighton, but looks like he might be in there as things stand at Brighton. So hoping that he starts against Wolves this week. Expect a pretty decent turnout from him if possible. And then I've got Gorna Duaf in midfield, Salzburg, heavily linked to a move to Brighton as well. So that'd be a nice little stacking potential there if it goes through. And then Cherky up front, captain at home against Montpellier. So I think that is a pretty strong U23 Super Rare team. And my next favourite lineup, I think, is it actually I decided to do this in Rare Pro All Star. So this is the team I've got. They've got so many teams this week that I've had to scroll so far. Okay, so in goal, Ter Stegen, Lautaro Giannetti Super Rare at the back, Robin Proper Rare captain, Gabriel Florentin midfielder in the Russian league, and then Kylian Mbappe up top. And the Sorare Data app has projected that as a 33rd place before any of the games have started. So I'll take that. That's probably the highest I've seen in an all-star lineup for any of my entries before. So yeah, really, that has made me really excited seeing that. But yeah, I've got some pretty decent lineups. Definitely fun to see a lot of the fixtures rolling in. Got a really strong challenger lineup. When I saw that Celtic had no game this weekend, I thought it's my time to shine, Quinny. So you've gone Safanov, Pavlovic, Ibrahim Sangare, Veerman Super Rare, and Tukovin Super Rare in there. I'm feeling good about that. So yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on that PSV Vitesse game on the weekend with Quinny. But yeah, overall pretty happy. I've actually put a decent lineup into Champion Asia Rare Pro as well. Joe
Harry just won that.
Harry just
won that in the midweek. Harry won it in the midweek.
Oh, I saw that. Didn't he put a Ural team together?
Yeah.
Did he put a team together, or did he always have those cards?
So he bought the super rare goalkeeper, but it came in a bundle. So it came with rares, and then he's just been collecting them. He just became an Urawa collector. And I didn't say this to him when I was talking to him, but my understanding of Urawa, and anyone who's maybe a bit more au fait with the J League can correct me on this, but my perception of them always is like they're kind of like the Man United of Japan, if you know what I mean. So he's got to be Japanese Man United. That's the way I look at it. He's got to be Man United collection on the go. But it's because they're bundle sales, and ended up with a squad anyway. And he just played the super rare keeper with 4 rares and finished top. He'll be unloading that if he's watching us live in 25 minutes on the Harry Trades YouTube channel. We're doing it live.
Good luck, Harry. We'll be keeping a keen eye on that. Definitely be good to see what you pull there.
You're in Champ Asia Pro. You're going after it too.
Yeah, I fancied it. I just because I've got so many options at the moment with all of the leagues reopening and trying to figure out. There was a lot of players I didn't want to take a risk on because I wanted to see if they play for their new clubs, or like the heartbreaker for me is Tony Kroos in arguably the best midfield lineup we've seen for a long time in Europe. How many minutes he's going to get at Madrid this season, no one really knows. So he's a bit. It's difficult to use him at the minute, but I've got a lot of players in a similar boat to him where they're quality, but they're being linked to other clubs. Players like Paqueta. I think now that is probably off, so I'll probably use him next weekend. But I didn't want to risk him this weekend in case it looked like he was moving. And I got a lot of that going on in my gallery. A lot of injuries, a lot of stuff where players have moved to new clubs. I want to see if they're going to get played or not. So yeah, I decided to just go in Asia with a lineup of cards. I don't know about anyone else that plays Korea, but the anxiety of like waiting for those Korea scores to come in on like a big lineup where you're like, oh, is it going to come in? I just thought, do you know what? Just bang them all in a lineup together. I can't be dealing with like 5 lineups relying on like AA scores to be added before like the cutoff point. So I put them all in Asia Rare Pro, and I think this is a nice team. I've got the Ulsan sort of defensive stack of Jo Hyun Woo in goal and Seo Yong Woo Super Rare at the back. They play at home to Jeonbuk. Tough game, but fingers crossed they can have a good defensive display. Eduardo at the back for Yokohama, captain. Super Rare Osmar and the new boy Na Sang Ho up top. So quite a fun one. A little Ulsan, Saul, and Eduardo sandwich going on there. So yeah, I'm going to have a keen eye on that one. Definitely feel like that's got legs. Hopefully can scrape another rewards out of that. Fingers crossed. But yeah, excited for the weekend. Bring it on. I actually, I'll be keeping a keen eye on the Bayern game tonight as well. Just seeing that kicks off a bit later. Can try and watch that. Get in front of a bit of football. I've missed it coming back from holiday.
So we're going to see Lima outscore Kimmich tonight.
Let's see it. The Poundland image. Let's bring it home.
Robbo outscore Trent tomorrow. And also as well, Stish, you're in for an emotional weekend. I think Tottenham might have your number on Saturday night.
I think so too, you know. I've always thought, like, I don't know, from young, that I've never liked United travelling to White Hart Lane. I don't know what happened. I guess we always concede there. We very rarely, like, I mean, I'm not looking at stats right now. I just, like, my gut is always that we're going to concede at Tottenham. Obviously, they've not got Harry Kane, but we didn't look great against Wolves. I watched the game and I thought we were pretty toothless. It was confusing. So I'm not convinced just yet. So yeah, I'm not feeling that confident about that game either. I think you might be right. There's a solid chance that we might lose against Tottenham. Fingers crossed we won't. But yeah, I mean, I would expect goals in that game. Maybe not from us if we play like we did against Wolves. I think we're going to have to change things a little bit. Garnacho, as much as I love him, he was not really at the races against Wolves. He kind of started brightly. He was, picking up free kicks and whatnot, but on the ball, and some of his runs were a little bit late. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if we see Sancho start ahead of him the weekend. But yeah, hopefully that. I just think, I know Ten Hag likes players who, with the high work rate and the defensive capabilities from the top, right? And I think that's why Anthony plays every game. You'll see him on the edge of our box defending, at 100 miles per hour, chasing down wingers like he's a right back. But when we're going forward, we just look out of ideas at the minute, or we did at least against Wolves. We just weren't that dynamic. I don't know what we were waiting for. A lot of players didn't really look like they wanted the ball. It wasn't a great start. Hopefully it was just one of those games, the first game of the season. We notoriously bad first game of the season, I think, apart from the time that we absolutely whacked Leeds and Pogba got 5 assists and we all got really excited and thought we were back. But yeah, I'm with you. I'll be surprised if we impress against Tottenham. But, we go in with low expectations. Hopefully we come out a bit more pleased. But I'll be keeping a keen eye on that one, definitely.
High expectations for the leaderboards, but this weekend, Stishy boy, we're locked and loaded.
That's it. Fingers are crossed, well and truly. And fingers crossed for everyone listening, watching. Once again, thanks for your eyes and ears. You can watch this back on Quinny's YouTube channel, or you can join us live on Twitch/Plastician. We normally do this on a Thursday. We've been holidays and travel and whatnot. But it's great to be back. Good luck, everyone. Good luck, Quinny. And we will be back again same time next week. Sometime next week. Yeah. Cheers, everyone. Good luck. Take care.